The prosecution spent nearly 5 hours giving its closing arguments in the Sean Combs trial. U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic portrayed Combs as the leader of a criminal enterprise who engaged in prostitution and racketeering. Her theme was Combs doesn't take no for an answer. Well, today, the defense gets its turn.
Harvey Levin from TMZ joining us now with what we can expect from the defense this morning. Harvey, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
You, of course, are a lawyer.
KCBS is home for me still.
Oh, wonderful. We're glad to have you back this morning. You, of course, are a lawyer. Oh, my goodness, this case, there's been so much to watch. So the prosecution needed to show that Combs coerced these women into freak-offs and that he was running a criminal enterprise. Did they do that?
Well, they told a story. So this is what's so important. Closing arguments are make or break in cases like this. That when you look at the weeks of testimony from prosecutors, you know, one day somebody's talking about racketeering and blowing up cars. The next day they're talking about a freak-off. And it's all this kind of disparate testimony. And nobody's putting it together while you're listening to all of it, while the jury's listening to all of it. Closing argument is when prosecutors tell the jury a story. Here is the story of Sean Combs. Here is the story of Sean Combs coercing, forcing Jane and Cassie, the two alleged victims, into having these freak-offs, into cajoling them, threatening to release video of these freak-offs unless they continue to do it, stopping payment of their rent and other expenses if they don't have freak-offs, using his people to help accomplish that. So that's what they were doing when it came to the sex trafficking issue. On the racketeering issue, what they said was this. They said, look, Diddy was almost like the king of the castle, and he was telling all of his servants to go out and commit crimes on his behalf to further his enterprise. And the crimes were varied. Blowing up Kid Cudi's car, they said, that he had his minions do that. Burglarizing Kid Cudi's home. Kidnapping his assistant and putting her in a warehouse, and on and on and on. And what they're saying is, under the law, all you have to do is find two of those things happened. For example, if you found that he did commit the arson and he did kidnap Cassandra, the assistant who was put in the warehouse, that's all you need is two of those crimes and you can prove racketeering. So they tried to package this, and that's what they did yesterday. So today, I think you're going to hear a very different story based on the same set of facts.
Yeah, Harvey, speaking of that, of course, today is the defense's turn. They'll be giving their closing this morning. During their trial, we know the team didn't put up any witnesses. We know that Combs also chose not to testify himself. What does Combs' lawyers need to say to plant reasonable doubt?
Well, what they're going to say is this. A couple of things. One, as to the freak-offs and coercing and everything else, they're going to say, you got to look at this. Cassie had an 11-year relationship with Diddy. She could have left at any time. And in fact, there were times when she did leave, but she came back. There were many instances where Cassie was rhapsodizing about these freak-offs, saying in text messages, I can't wait for another freak-off. And it doesn't sound like somebody who was forced into them. They're going to say the same thing about Jane. When it comes to racketeering, they're going to say, look, Diddy is a terrible guy, and he did some terrible things, not the least of which is beating Cassie viciously at the Intercontinental Hotel in Century City in 2016. But he's not a racketeer, and he's not even being charged for that crime. That's a state crime, and the statute of limitations is run. They're going to say that this is a crazy, jealous, maybe even criminal ex-boyfriend. But that's not why he's being tried in federal court. He's being tried for racketeering. And this is not organized crime, it's disorganized crime. And I think they're going to end with this. They are probably going to say that when you look at this case, it is bedroom police, that they have gone inside Diddy's bedroom and they are trying him for kinky sex. And the support of that is Why did the prosecution make such a big deal of baby oil and all the other accoutrements? That those things are not illegal, but they're salacious, and they're going to argue that this is the federal government going into people's bedrooms, and they'll ask the jury to reject that.
Yeah, part of this is why I think the public has been so attracted to this. Of course, it is Sean Diddy Combs, but there were so many wild details in this case. You've, of course, covered so many celebrity trials in your career. You mentioned your time here at KCBS, KCAL. Where does this rank in terms of public fascination?
Well, I mean, it's high in public fascination. What it doesn't have are cameras. And cameras make a huge difference in these cases, because it's one thing for me to talk to you about what happened in court, but you haven't seen it. You haven't heard it. You haven't seen the flesh and blood in the courtroom. And it makes a difference. I mean, recently Karen Reed attracted so much attention in no small part because of television cameras. And I covered O.J. Simpson when I was at KCBS, and there's no doubt about it. The cameras elevated that into a national obsession. And even though Diddy is something that is riveting for people, it's just not the same because there are no cameras.
Very interesting. All right, Harvey, we appreciate you joining us so much this morning. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
And you can catch Harvey Levin every day, Monday through Friday on Channel 11. TMZ airs live at 4 p.m. and TMZ is on at 7:30 p.m.